Hello again, my Everett friends. Good to be able to reach out and chat with you one more time. Welcome to the latest stream of Everett Reinvented. We're recording this segment on October the 25th, 2025. We have approximately 13 days to go, 14 days exactly, until the election, November 4th, 2025. Things have really taken off out on the campaign trail. With Robert Van Campen coming on strong, just out there every day, pounding the pavement, on the airwaves, on social media, in the newspaper. He's everywhere, and he's getting his message out. Carlo Di Maria is, of course, responding in kind, putting out his literature through the U.S. Post Office, fundraisers, hot dog cookouts, and all the usual nefarious activities go on behind the scene from the various campaigns across the city, whether it's a mayor's race, city council, or what have you. We have some interesting characters and interesting candidates coming into the mix. The main purpose, at least at this juncture, for the Everett Reinvented is to introduce you to some of the candidates who are not so well known, and who, in my opinion, hopefully will bring a change for the better to the declining culture we've seen at City Hall over the last decade or so. There is definitely time for a draining of the swamp, as I like to call it. There is just some real bad ways of doing business, and a couple of shady people that are charged with doing it, and all that needs to change. So the guest we have today is an exciting young lady who caught my attention when she was presenting in public participation at a city council meeting. She just came on. She was a spark of fire, and it's very, very impressive. In a follow-up exchange after that, I had a chance to speak with her, or actually exchange by email, and even inquired if she ever thought about running for city council or an elected or appointed position. And at that time she declined, but a few months later I saw her name appear in the circles of having pulled papers, and I couldn't be more thrilled to see her name in the game, as the saying might go. I refer to a young lady coming from Ward 4, Miss Cynthia Salazar. And if you've had a chance to talk to her, you know that she's bringing a charge. She's bringing a charge, and she'll bring some real change to the game. And let me go ahead and play the clip that first caught my attention, because you can tell immediately that she's an impactful person, and she is definitely geared to make a difference once elected. And I think that will be the case. So let's take a look at Cynthia at the public participation meeting.
Fight for the children. You're literally the last part of this, okay? We need you. Look at this. Let us meet the issues at once, honestly, openly, and fearlessly.
No question. No question, leadership abilities abound with this young lady. She has a Facebook page where she has her candidate information and a few reels on there, and a couple of good postings, some information that'll be useful to you. You can find her at facebook.com/Salazar numeral 4 Salazar numeral 4 Everett. That's facebook.com Salazar 4 Everett. Or look it up as Cynthia for Everett Ward 4. And when she comes on, we'll let her give you the rest of her information, telephone number and email address and all that good stuff. But first, let's take a look at a very impressive reel. Give you an idea of the high energy that Cynthia is bringing to the game here.
Good morning. If you recently found one of these in your mailbox, hi, my name is Cynthia Salazar, and I'm running for City Council Ward 4. And I'm on one of my early morning walks, making sure that you get one of these and learn a little bit more about me. This is my first time running as a city council member for Ward 4. However, it's not my first time running for a council. I, in grad school, have been on graduate student council. In high school, I was in student government. You could say that government's always been kind of a little piece of me. I'm raised in Everett, and I care about Everett, and I want to be a voice for the people that feel like they've been forgotten. So, if you remember me in November, please vote.
Salazar, good afternoon, ma'am. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm doing well. Thank you so much, Walt, for having me here today. It is a pleasure to finally get to speak to you on camera and get to talk to you.
It's a sight, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
A lot of miles on this old frame here, but as you and I talked offline beforehand, I have a lot of miles, and some of them from the Everett days, 25, 30 years in Everett, and seeing the evolution of politics. So we did a little run up on a little bit about you, Cynthia, and from our conversation beforehand and what I've learned on your Facebook page. First and foremost, I think very important that at least technically on paper, you're an immigrant from Peru, a proud heritage, and anybody that's on your Facebook page or seen your reels realize that you're very close with your father, and he's a proud dad. We see him on there. So tell us a little bit about that run up that got you up to Pope John, brought the family into town, and any relevance that you have to city government your family had during those days.
Sure. I would love to talk about that. First of all, thank you so much for the warm welcome that you gave. That was such a great rundown. But I would actually like to start with a little bit of a moment of silence for just a short period, because I don't know if you knew, but we had 2 subcontractors pass away during the crane accident
Yes, ma'am.
over the demolition recently.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
My heart really goes to those families. That is such a difficult time, especially. I mean, I connect with them a little bit just because they're subcontractors, and my dad is sometimes a subcontractor. So you never know what can happen, and that's just a really, really unfortunate event. So, this is obviously a sad moment for those families. But yeah. So my family, so we moved to the U.S. when I was less than 2 years old. But I've lived in Everett for most of my life. Obviously, before then, some other cities and New York as well. So but eventually, once we got here, this is home. This is my home. I went to Pope John, like you said, and I've always been very close to my family as a whole, and we have a lot of leaders in my family. We've got a really strong individual in my uncle and my dad. My dad is obviously the one that I see the most, and my mom obviously is also strong in her own right. But my dad has always been kind of the one that is a mover and a shaker, right? The two of them combined are just such a strong team, and I learned from just watching what they do. My dad and my mom together started the Spanish community at Immaculate Conception.
Oh,
because
Immaculate. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because prior to that, we went to St. Therese, I believe it was called. It was the one that, the one that closed down and is now, I think, the library or a different. Oh no, it's the building for. It's a new building. I don't remember right now what it is, but yes, yeah. So when they closed down the church, they were like, okay, where else can we go? And so Immaculate Conception was right there, but they didn't have mass in Spanish. So they were like, okay, so we have to get a mass here. And so they started that, and I was always just really impressed as to how they just went in and did that. And that's kind of how I've grown up, living in general. Whenever I would see something that I felt needed to be done, I would just go and do it. I mean, sometimes, you kind of wish that other people would do it and you're like,
Yeah.
oh man, but then when nobody does it, you're like, all right, I guess I have to go in and do it. And that's honestly kind of how I felt in regards to running, because I trust. I really like to trust and really wish the best always with the people that are in office. But then sometimes you see certain things that you're like, well, I feel like this could be a little bit different, right? How can this be a little bit better? And when I saw what was going on, especially after attending some of the city council meetings, I
Yeah.
decided that, you know what, I think I should go and also do my own work as well, because I can't, I also don't really appreciate when people will complain about things but then don't do anything about it, right?
Uh-huh.
So I was like,
Uh-huh.
okay, I got to go and do something.
Always been one of my claims is, it's one thing to, pardon my language, bitch the natural bitch, but if you're gonna come up there and criticize, at least try to come up with a solution, try to come up with a proposal or something like that. It's easy
Yeah.
to shoot from the hip and criticize other people's efforts, or the lack thereof of productivity, but
Yeah.
at least try to come up with some kind of solution rather than just be what they call an armchair quarterback or an armchair critic. You talked about um, your dad and the evangelical side of things. Or just as an aside, my late girlfriend, late common law wife, she was a Eucharistic minister up there at.
At Immaculate Conception?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah.
Well, I'm
She
sorry
was.
about her loss.
She was very, very, very devout about that stuff. Very involved in it. So, y'all probably passed each other 1,000 times in those environments.
Yeah.
Um, So, coming up a little bit forward, you got involved as we talked into some of the activities within your father and your mother's church going activities there.
Mhm.
One was you started a group that pretty much it was meant to be like a mentorship for young ladies who were involved in the arts, if I remember it correctly. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, something that you mentioned before, we are immigrant and therefore very close to the immigrant community, but also growing up in the US, I have this kind of bicultural side to me.
Yeah,
So, there are a lot of kids also with the same upbringing, right? And something that I really wish existed for me were some of the programs that I knew some of my counterparts from other neighborhoods, maybe that were a little bit more well off, actually had. Like, I got into improv when I was in my 20s. And
yeah,
whenever I would talk to people about improv, they would say, oh, yeah, I did that in high school, or oh, I did that in middle school. And I never had that opportunity. So when I saw that Immaculate Conception, the Spanish community had started kind of a fundraiser that was a pageant, I
yeah,
decided to take that on and switch it a little bit. Make the purpose not just about raising funds, but also about expanding on the talents and exposure that the girls would have to the arts,
yeah,
especially considering all of the budget cuts regarding arts programs in general in public education. So I wanted to make that opportunity that I didn't have. So I made this program into more of a talent, what is it called? A talent development and talent exploration. So I taught them also public speaking. We did improv workshops. We did, um, well, obviously pageantry, like walking and stuff like that, but public, persona,
hmm
presence.
hmm
And then we did have the talent segment. So through that, they would discover a new art. Like one girl did a hula hoop dance, right? That was really cool. Another girl, she played the piano. There were a lot of singers, a lot of dancers, and just different kinds of arts that came out from that. But it also helped them to kind of understand their culture a little bit better,
Yeah,
right? So they know,
right.
everybody, we know that we're American, but they also have this other culture that it kind of helped them to understand a little bit more of as well. So it was a really all encompassing program that I wanted to help them empower themselves so that from then they could become more active in the classroom and in their community.
Yeah, it's. I mean, certainly you took a well-meaning effort and a well-meaning project, and you just expanded that mission and defined it for even further.
Hmm.
And it sounds to me as you've turned it into almost a professional track, on how people can maximize their potential in all the
Hmm.
different domains that lead up to a successful career in entertainment or what have you. And I
Yeah.
guess this is a good time kind of to spill the beans and anything would be familiar with. And I know you said you did some commercials and things like that. Anything that we would be familiar with?
Yeah, so I did do some indies as well, but yeah, I did a lot of commercials around. This one's silly, but I also did a lot of corporate
Yeah,
programs
yeah,
and
sure. Training
you know,
and things like that.
yeah. So if anybody worked at TJ Maxx and was becoming a manager, I did a lot of their projects. So I remember one time I was at the airport actually, and this one woman, she turned to me and she was like, "Did you do a project for TJ Maxx?" And I said, "Yes."
Yeah.
And but she actually remembered she was one of the people that had, I think, also put it together. But then yeah, she was super excited to see me. They named the character after me as well. Like I did a lot of their projects.
They were a fun
Um,
bunch of people too.
yeah,
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 I
yeah.
had experience with them. I used to do. I did professional golf instruction, gave lessons,
Oh,
um, and so the TJ Maxx people. I don't know. I can't remember what department they were, but they were marketing or something like that.
yeah.
About 10 or 12 of them would get together every Thursday night and take golf lessons, and I was their instructor. I
Oh,
mean, you
wow.
got it was like trying to baptize a cat. They were just they were uncontrollable. They were funny people. They were great people. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
TJ
But
Maxx. I mean, go ahead.
yeah, no, I mean there's a few others. There's like I did a Stop and Shop thing. I did a hospital for New Hampshire. It's called Wentworth Douglas. I also did a bank. I forget what bank it was actually. Oh wait, that could have been North Carolina.
Oh,
But anyway, I've done a bunch of different projects. Yeah.
outstanding.
Yeah.
So this kind of leads me to over to your education a little bit. Syracuse University,
Hmm.
and I apologize. You told me what your degree was in.
It was in
Back,
biotechnology.
back, which you did you actually work? You worked in the field for.
I worked in research for a little bit, but I mostly worked in labs while I was in college and a little
Uh-huh.
bit after I
Mhm, mhm.
graduated, but not that long. Then I worked at a science journal. So that was my connection. Yeah.
And now you're pursuing an MBA.
Correct. Yes.
All right, and so it's obviously business,
Yeah.
and maybe geared towards the entertainment industry or marketing or
Yeah.
something along those lines. But
Correct.
we'll leave you to define that portion of it. So coming into a little bit about what's going on in Everett and things like
Mm,
that. You've made some remarkable presentations in public speaking and what have you. You
appreciate
are
it.
able to ask the pointed questions, which a lot of people can throw questions up there, but they're not pointed enough really to get to the heart of the matter, and that gives our politicians the ability to dance around certain things. So let's
Hmm.
talk about what you see as a couple of pressing issues that are facing city government right now. I throw the general categories of government accountability, access, and the school systems. So if you want to pick on those, potpourri, your own choice. Tell me whatever it needs right now. What needs to be fixed, and then we'll get to
Sure.
how do you fix it.
So I think that there are a lot of projects that Everett's trying to do. And a lot of them seem like they're a pretty good idea. But the problem is that it's hard to really have these projects go well if there's not an accountable leadership, right? And if there's no trust from the community. And I think that right now, that's one of the main things. I mean, I don't want to say either way, but if for some reason the community is not feeling like they can trust, there's a reason why, right? And I mean,
Yeah.
obviously at this point we know that certain things are happening, but if there was more transparency, then these issues wouldn't arise, right? So we need more transparency. That is a key thing. We need to really speak to the people in a way that they can understand,
Absolutely.
and really talk about what is happening and the reasons for why certain decisions are made,
Yeah.
and where money is going, and just why the taxes are so high. I mean, that's one of the comments I get so frequently from residents, is that their taxes are continuously going up, where, you know, the casino was the reason why. I mean, one of the big sellers about the casino was that it would help the property taxes go down.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of question around that, right? Where are the answers to that? Why don't we know? Why is that happening, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, you've
Yeah.
touched on something. Again, you and I talked earlier. Talked yesterday, a little bit by phone, and you know, I think one thing that we agreed on is it's not just a matter of replacing leadership. It's not just a
Right.
matter of a new mayor.
Right.
We're talking about a culture that has developed over years, and part
Exactly.
of that culture has been a culture of secrecy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it's been, you know, either not informing residents at all about what's going on, or being very vague on details and things like that. So this is, you know, again, not just, you know, a mission to replace one person, but it's a mission to change a culture. So
Exactly.
you definitely, you know, you hit on something there. And when you talk about the trust, and this is what the question I'm getting at, I posed to other candidates that we did streams with, or I did a stream with. Given what's happened,
Mm.
especially with the longevity payment, Carlo Di Maria, possibly, you know, some other hands that were involved in hiding money and things like that. We just, you know, I'll give benefit of the doubt, but it certainly looks nefarious as far as I'm concerned. Um, is trust recoverable at this point for the administration? Could they possibly go on, or you know, in your opinion, is it because I mean there was a city council vote, so I'm not trying to paint you into a corner here and
Yeah.
alienate anybody, but the facts are what they are. So there was a city council meeting, and everybody except one person who recused himself. It was a no confidence vote all the way across the board,
Right.
and that's pretty much a statement. Is, you know what? It's not retrievable. Trust is not retrievable here. Is it retrievable in your opinion?
Well, I think we need to look at something else. If we're talking about the current administration, I think there's another issue as well, right? So, luckily for me in this business program, I've learned a lot about doing internal analysis, right? And
Great.
so over the summer, I did an analysis on a company that I worked at. And, you know, I really like doing these kinds of things. I really like going into the operations and understanding what's going on. But one of the things that I found out through my research is that, do you know how long a CEO is considered to have their, you know, like what's a good length of time for a CEO for a company? Do you know?
No, I'd say 4 to 5 years.
Okay. So that's pretty good. Typically the board actually thinks that they can do maybe 6 or 7,
All right.
right? But a lot of times they end up doing up to 15. And that's because they go through kind of waves, right? They start off, it can be really, really strong if it's a, you know, successful CEO, obviously, because
Right.
if they start off wrong, then it'll be much shorter than that. But they can start off really strong and there's a lot of momentum, but at some point they kind of hit a little bit of a halt, so then they drop and maybe they end up kind of coming back a little bit.
Yeah.
But around year 14, 15, I mean, that's really, really, really squeezing everything out of the lemon, right?
Right. Right.
And currently we're at year 18. So we're already past the time of squeezing any lemon juice out of the lemon. So I think whether or not it is, you know, possible to get trust back, I think just 18 years is a very, very long time. And clearly, based on the data, it's too long. It's just well beyond the acceptable. So maybe trust can be brought back, right? Maybe the money can be given back to the city. That's all great and dandy. But at this point, it is time to give somebody else a chance and let them have their next run. And honestly, I think that what the data says, right, in the board, when they say that, oh, a CEO can be in for about 6 to 7 years, I actually think that already is probably a really good run. But sometimes people have great ideas and whatever, and then they can keep going. But the second half of the run isn't necessarily going to be that much better than the first run. So really, I think that's really the answer. Maybe we can get the trust back. I'm not really sure, but I just think it's beyond the time.
Great explanation, and the reason I'm smiling is I'm gonna put a cheap plug in from the title of this stream. What you're telling me is Everett really needs to be reinvented. So
there you go. Yes, exactly.
Because the same old ain't gonna continue to work anymore.
Yeah.
You're proving out my points. You're very articulate. You can deliver the message and explain it in a way that either I can't or I lack the diplomacy to do so. Sometimes my passion gets the better of me. All right, so so we got the trust issues. We talked about that. One thing that you pay a lot of attention to, because you have spent so much time in the environments, the academic environments, is the schools. And you're a graduate of Pope John, are you, or did you just attend?
No, I was very active there. I did all my 4 years there. I was part of the drama club. I was in student government. I was in Model UN. What else did I do? Oh, I was on the dance team. I did hockey cheering for a year. I was on the yearbook club. I did a lot at that school. In fact, if you look at my senior year yearbook, I am in a ton of the club pictures. So yes, I loved that school. I know a lot of people often have a hard time in high school. I enjoyed my experience in high school. I planned our 10-year reunion. Oh my God. I planned our 10-year reunion. Not necessarily, this was again one of those situations where I didn't necessarily want to be the one that did it. I just, people started bringing it up to me, and I, made the Facebook group. I was like, okay, somebody here, do it. And then, a year before our 10-year, they kept saying, Cynthia, are we doing this? Cynthia, are we doing this? Cynthia, are you going to do this? And then I was like, all right, fine. And luckily I was able to get two of my classmates to help out with it. And so the three of us put it together, and it was awesome. But all that to say that, yes, I think you're heading towards the building and my...
Obviously you have an affection for the environment because it's your history and all that. But the other side of it is, too, is you know the structure, you know the building, you know what's going on in the school systems right now. I mean, it doesn't even take your inside knowledge, really, for it to be a no-brainer that this thing should be flipped and students should be in there, as far as I'm concerned. But talk a little bit about, just in general, what you see in the school system itself. We've had a pretty dramatic change of leadership when Mr. Haliani went through her ordeal, and Mr. Hart came in. I've known Billy for a long time, so I can't say that he's a poor choice, but there was quite an upheaval in all that transition going through and resulting in the change of leadership. What do you see? What's your opinion versus when you went through that school system or were aside that school system? You were Pope John. What declines or advantages do you see? Where are we at? What are the main problems? Overcrowding, right?
Yeah, I mean, that has been my main point since day one, since before I ever even thought that I would ever run for city council. Back in 2022, I went to city council and I talked to them about it because it was brought to my attention, I believe, by a student at the time. That student at this point, because this has been going on for that long, I think that student already graduated college at this point. Oh. So, yeah. I'm pretty sure it was brought to me by one of them, because again, I'm very active in the church. And so I was, I like to talk to the younger people, and they brought it up to me, and I couldn't believe that people would have to take some of their special needs classes even in storage closets. And that just, it didn't seem right. But on top of that, I also found out that Pope John, Pope John had already closed down, and now the city of Everett owned it. And at the time, there was plans to give it to a developer, so basically
Right.
to have that demolished. So when those two things came to me at pretty much the same time, it really grabbed my attention, because I was like, well, I don't want my building, my school, to be demolished, right? I mean, there were schools around, middle schools and elementary schools, saving or putting together, raising money to give to the Pope John community to try to help keep Pope John alive. And unfortunately, those efforts failed.
Yeah.
So that just shows how much of an impact that school has made on this nearby community, right? And so
Right.
I knew I wasn't the only one that felt this strongly about the building itself. But then on top of that, learning about these kids having to have classes in storage closets, I was like, well, how is this a thing, right? If we have a building that's available that recently, not that long ago, right, up until 2019, was used for classrooms and for a functional school, why can that not be used now, right?
Absolutely.
And then of course I went to city council, and they told me that they had already been talking about the overcrowding problem for 4 years.
Yeah, I remember your statement on that. It was,
Yeah, so
basically
so they
where you been all my life.
right. So I'm like, well, okay, so you have already been talking about it for 4 years, and it's 2022, and now we're in 2025, and they're still talking about it. Not to mention, now we have all these developments that are coming up with 600 units. How many of them will have children? I mean, a lot of people try to talk about how there's students from other neighborhoods coming in, and which I've also asked actual students about their experiences with kids from other places. And a lot of times they've told me, to be honest, it's not that many, A, and B, sometimes it's just somebody that has already been to Everett Public Schools for the majority of their schooling, and their parents just moved for the last couple of years or so. And they are just like, well, all of my friends are here. Why do I want to go somewhere else? So it's a situation like that. I know that there are different experiences, so I don't want to just, all encompass with that one. But all I'm saying is that we have a lot of children from these new developments, from whatever else. And it's just, we have these buildings in the city that are available to be used. So why not use them?
Yeah, and you led me right to my next question. So obviously there are alternatives to using the site, the former Pope John. In other words, the overcrowding problem could be dealt with by picking another site to do this.
Yeah.
So I think if I'm getting it right, you're going after the same point. Is you've been working on this for X amount of years. Why is it still a problem?
Right.
So the question, I mean, the answer never really rose to the top. The problem is not because we don't have alternatives. The problem is because the powers that be refuse to look at those alternatives, or they've dug their heels in and they're gonna do this until they can get their way and flip that Pope John property to a private developer, and then they'll move forward. But to me, it seems that the lack of progress on this problem is a matter of choice, not a matter of they can't move forward. It's just that they refuse to move forward because everybody wants their piece of the pie. Would you say I'm right?
I mean, I remember that one of the first answers I got, or one of the first responses given, was that for some reason the building couldn't be used and it had to be updated, and that would require way more money than demolishing it or building an entirely new building. But with the new roof going onto the old Everett High School, we know that to build a new building, it would be a lot more expensive than to just, make a few updates in another one, right? It depends on what kind of updates you're making. I mean, obviously, I don't actually work in construction, so I can't specifically say to that. But the school was being used up until 2019, and it had an elevator. Someone told me that it wasn't ADA accessible, but there's an elevator inside the building, and you can enter without having to use the stairs. So that already is ADA compliant. So I'm not entirely sure where all these excuses were coming from. So, I don't want to say in either direction, but this is what the data says, right? The data says this construction of a new building would require a lot more money than the current building that already exists with any minor updates. That is something already out of there. And then the fact that there are classrooms already available versus not having, or just having to have overcrowded spaces, that's also a fact, right? So these are all facts. And yeah, I mean, those facts lead me to believe that yes, this is being ignored for no reason.
You mentioned the old high school, which is another can of worms all by itself. I don't see it as a practical alternative, but I haven't been able to eyeball the thing up close. Just I've got a lot of grave concerns, most of them surrounding safety issues with going into that old building, its location, the fact that they want to co-op it with outside um, organizations and things like that, boxing clubs and what have you. It just doesn't seem like a suitable location. But anyways, back to my point is this has become a stalemate, as I see it. And I just want to emphasize the fact for the voters that this has become a matter of choice, that they could have moved on with this and settled this problem a long time ago, but it's a matter of personal privilege that they're going after and refusing to move forward. Carlo Di Maria wants to flip that building over there to his developers, and he's just going to make people pay the price until he gets his way, or not.
Which I do want to comment on really fast, because I don't believe that the Di Maria children go to the public schools, do they?
I can't tell you for sure.
I know that at least some of them, or one of them, was my brother's classmate, which is it's a Catholic school, and probably Malden Catholic or something like that. I'm pretty sure they're all private schools, which that's great and dandy for the people that are very fortunate to be able to send their kids to private schools. But what about the kids that can't go to private schools, right? And when you're not impacted by that directly, then you care less, right?
Well, let me ask you this, because we should move in kind of the phase of, what do we do next? So along those lines, we get the overcrowding and what have you, looking for a solution, but exacerbating the problem, of course, in my opinion, is going to be all this overbuilding is going to bring a whole bunch of new people into an already overburdened system.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Where do you see that going? How does it impact what we're doing today? What is your recommendation in dealing with the spike that's going to come up? How do we communicate? How do we reach out to these people that are going to be new customers?
This is quite it's an interesting point for me, because I have been a new person in a new place, like I've been in other cities, and when I'm in Everett, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's too many people. But when I'm the one that's going into another city, I'm like, well, I want to just be part of your community, and I just want to help your community, right? Mm-hmm. So I do think that we have to, I mean, at this point, the buildings that are here, right? So the people that end up coming in, they're going to end up coming in. I will say, any future developments, I think that we really have to think twice, thrice, 4 times, right? Because we're already packed to the brim. But yes, to be able to connect with them, we definitely have to maintain open communication, right? We have to accept that some of them are going to be transients, right? So they might be here for a short time, but I do think that Everett already kind of has a little bit of a culture that isn't super obvious, but I think that if we're more open with kind of learning to embrace the people that are coming in, then it will be better. So one of my examples, for example, is you, right? because you're not originally from Everett, but you came here and you connected so well with the people. And I mean, now you don't even live in Everett and you're still, doing so much for the city of Everett because of how much you connected with it, right? And you're technically also a transient person. So yeah. So I just think that as much as my heart initially is like, oh, all these people are, coming in and they're just going to come in and then leave and then go somewhere else. And, they don't, it's kind of like when I think about LA or New York, a lot of times it feels like it's a city of nobody, right? Just people coming and going, and then like people don't really care. But I do think that Everett has enough people that do care, that if we have that openness to the people that are coming in, I think we can get them to care just as much, kind of like how they got you to care, right?
Good point. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Going from the school overcrowding and what you just touched on kind of reminds me of something. One of your many strengths is communication, and in my opinion, there are a great number of people that are basically disenfranchised from. I don't even know if they were franchised in the first place to local city government, but and it's not just the language barrier; it's also the individual cultures themselves. I mean, what's going on with Homeland Security and all that? People are walking on eggshells and all that. But the point I'm getting at is, I don't think that city government in general has done a good job at all about bridging the gap, the communication gap that has existed, and the disparity that has existed between certain cultural groups or ethnic groups, whatever you want to call it, um, and get them engaged in the process and let them know what their help is. Now, to link all this together, when you talk about the school overcrowding situation, and you talk about a lot of people coming into the area via the new building, some of these people are also going to be part of those special demographics and have those barriers to access and what have you. So,
I actually don't know about that, because the new
really?
buildings that are coming, yeah, no, because the new developments that are coming in, have you looked at how much the rent is for those?
Yes, I have. Yes, I
It's
have.
so expensive.
But you get a lot.
So
I don't know what the term is. You get a lot of crowd sharing going on where you got, you
in
know,
those luxury buildings, it's much less. Like if you look at the people that live in the Cumberbatch, it
mhm.
is, yeah, that is the majority are people that come in with a lot of money, right? Because they're so expensive to live in those places, and
Okay.
they're luxury homes. They like, you have to make a certain level of income. You have to have a lot of, yeah,
All right,
requisites.
maybe I'm incorrect on that aspect of the assumption, but my point I think still prevails, even if it's not a cultural one or a barrier, is that I don't think city government, when they look for alternatives and things like that, and they say, okay, we got X amount of students, I don't think they're really factoring in
Oh no,
what the bump's going to be here.
no.
So, and I think you kind of already alluded to that, is
Hmm.
that before they even put the first brick down, whatever they're building is probably already going to be overcrowded by the day it's finished.
Yeah.
It's probably already going to be full and have no expansion capabilities to it. So
Hmm.
I don't think good planning is going into this. Um, I think you're going to see an increased stress on city services. You're going to see a lot more safety issues starting to rise up to the top. Fortunately, I mean, you with great deafness, you had the moment of silence at the beginning of this conversation. Thankfully, although in the end, I guess it didn't help, they were able to get the emergency equipment in and out of there real quick. Yeah, we're heading for a situation where if we get a catastrophic event taking place, you're not going to be able to move emergency vehicles through that city,
Mm.
and there's going to be a larger loss of life than need be have happened from the accident itself. And I think some of the stuff, it's the writing is on the wall here. So one of the stresses I'm getting at is the stressor it's going to put onto the school systems, and they're
Hmm.
making all these plans, but they're not making it with a clear vision of what they're going to need as little as 2 years from now. So I guess, but you're on top of those things, so I guess you'd be kind of driving that conversation forward. Um,
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely an area that we absolutely have to as city council, have to solidify and crystallize the plans, right? So, for example, when we're talking about building the stadium, I shouldn't I shouldn't get this answer when I ask about how you're going to deal with traffic. Well, what we have planned is that people are going to use the public transit system and, of course, the water ferries. And, but that's why we're going to have limited parking, and we encourage people to ride bikes and walk over. You can't just bank on those assumptions, right? You have to have a solid plan. Yeah. However, that is the answer that I've received. So that tells me you are not planning properly. You're just assuming that everybody's going to take the water ferry. From where? You mean from within Everett? That doesn't make any sense. Are people going to walk from their houses down here, maybe near Malden, all the way to the stadium? What public transit? Oh, okay. So I have to wait on Saturday evenings, by the way, because they're, a lot of the games they told me are going to be on Saturday evenings. So you're saying that I'm going to have to wait however long to take this bus that in the end is still going to get caught up in the traffic, because a lot of times there are cars in the bus lane, right? Yeah, so, yeah. And the bus lane is really only reserved for weekdays and peak times during the weekdays. So really, again, you don't have a solid plan. You're banking on assumptions. And that's just not the way that an organization, right, of such a level should be working. It doesn't make sense, right? When you think of what to do, you as an individual, you think a few steps beforehand, right? You're like, okay, I want to go to the store. What do I need? Oh, okay, I need my wallet. I need to do this. I need to plan. Oh, what if there's no parking? You take these steps individually, right? So why wouldn't an organization, a city government, plan for these things? Okay, if I'm going to bring in a 600 unit building, let's imagine that they have a child and they end up living there for a certain amount of time. You already have 600 additional children, all of different ages. Where do you put them? It doesn't really make sense. And I just think that this is exactly what city council and the mayor's job is to do, right? You have to crystallize all of these and solidify these when you're making these contracts with the developers.
Sure, which goes back to our point about transparency and secrecy and all that.
Right.
That had the community been engaged in this, and, and invited to the table, in my opinion, the consensus is that the community doesn't want the stadium. They just, I don't think they do. But I'll give benefit of the doubt here. But at minimum, shouldn't this be a ballot issue? Shouldn't we at least hear the voice of the community? I get all this. Well, it's non-binding. I don't care if it's binding or not. I want the community's voice on record that says, "Hey, we don't want this." Yeah, we do want it. But at least they did that with the casino. Here the excuse is, well, it's all private money, and the community wants it, and it's non-binding. Bullshit. Let's give the community a voice, because what you're talking about is getting them into the table, and then we would have been talking about those traffic issues, and either there would have been a mitigation plan put forward, or we would have discovered, hey, this isn't viable. We can't do this, but it never happened. There was all backroom deals, and hey, we'll get this going, and all of a sudden, this Port Authority diversion comes up and things like that. So there's a lot of meat on the bone before they even get to putting a post in the ground on building these things.
But I do have something for that, though.
Yeah.
So I spoke to, I went to, that's actually why I missed one of the largest meetings when they were the city council meeting when they were talking about the child that was, taken by ICE. I missed it because at the time I was just coming back, but I went to the meeting with the New England Revolution, and I did speak to them about that. And something that they brought up to me, which I think is great, right? So, okay, we don't get the chance to have anything on the ballot, but their plan, right, is to have as many meetings with the community to get this kind of feedback. That's what they told me specifically. So we should be attending all of these meetings that they're putting up. And the guy even told me that if we wanted to specifically get a group together to talk to them, they would happily come down and talk to them.
But still, it's putting the cart before the horse here. These discussions, this community involvement should have taken place a long time ago.
Yeah,
not
that's true.
before they rammed the DPA down their throat. I
Yep.
mean, you hear the administration saying, "Oh, the environmental groups are in favor." Not from what I heard. I mean, I talked to those people over at the Conservation Law Foundation. They weren't in favor of any stadium going in there. In
Mm.
fact, they got rebuffed at the open meetings, I believe, initially. But no, we're not getting the clear thing. It should have happened a long time ago
Yeah.
because my feeling is now you got uh, you, as far as I know, you got an agreement with the Crafts.
Mm.
They have carte blanche to do what they want for 5 years now. They have
Mm.
no worry about competition coming in, and that never should have happened. If it's one thing to remove the DPA, but that thing should have been left wide open for other industries to come in and be able to make proposals on that property and give a wider choice for the citizens of Everett. That
Mm.
wasn't the design. Robert Kraft wanted a carte blanche. He wanted a closed deal, and he got it. And
Mm.
that was, as far as I'm concerned, a very deceptive move on the part of the administration, on the part of the state senator, and even the state representative as well. I don't know how deeply he was involved, but they all talked to each other.
Yeah.
It never should have come down that way. So, yeah, great if they get that going, and maybe we can get some concessions for the residents. But I don't think at this point in time all the discussions in the world will change
Yeah.
the plan to put a stadium there. I think they're going to drive it down your throat one way or the other. Uh,
I
really,
mean, but they did that with the casino too, right? I mean, we first
yeah.
had the one vote. The vote was a no, and then we got the yes campaign, and then the vote ended up being a yes.
Well, they were smart enough to. I don't know if they financially underwrote it, if winning company and stuff, but they got. I can't remember the name of the group, but there was a group that formed up, a nonprofit group, Citizens for Everett or something like that, that wanted the casino, and
Mm.
eventually, of course, the thing got pushed through. But at least they were smart enough to throw some money behind it, create a grassroots group to get the rest of the people on board for the damn thing, and that's what they did. And that they, yeah, Citizens for Everett. I can't remember, but you can look it up. Um, it'll be interesting to see how all this plays out. What you know for sure is a lot of people are going to make a lot of money. There's that's what this is all about. It's all about contracts. This failure to go forward in the school. It's all about flipping land. Getting people investment opportunities, quid pro
Yeah.
quo, and hey, but that's the currency of politics.
Mm.
It's just there needs to be some regulation on it. There's been a real destruction of checks and balances in the system of Everett. With the mayor getting onto the school committee, becoming a voting member, uh, melding of positions like CFO and auditor and things like that. All of a sudden, the fox is God in the hen house. It's just crazy stuff. So there's been a lot of problems that need cleaning up, and somebody like you can do something like that. Your background, your education, your experience, it all speaks to you. You have everyday hands-on experience doing that stuff. I think there's no question as to your motives or your ethics. Uh, you have a person that's in the Ward 4 seat now is very, very vanilla. If I was a Ward 4 voter, you'd get my vote just based, if for no other reason on the fact not what she has done, but what she hasn't done. And she hasn't done anything. She hasn't done anything to improve the overall quality of the city. Has a very, very weak voice, and as far as I'm concerned, is surviving on charm alone, and that's just not going to work. So I'd rather see you get up there and take a shot at it. So what is pick an issue? You get what's that? You get the genie bottle here, and you can rub it, and the magic genie's going to come out. What's the first issue that Counselor? Should I say it? Counselor Salazar is going to take on. Or what would be the first thing you'd like to see addressed when you get into city government?
Make a decision about where to put the children to get this overcrowding taken care of. I've been speaking about that the longest, and that's the one that I think has. I mean, I think that transparency in the government is 100% important. Don't get me wrong, but the children, this is their upbringing, right? I mean, we have only a few years. Since the last time I spoke, or since the first time I spoke, I should say, right? 2022, some kids have probably already graduated the high school. Some kids are, so it's like we're literally not doing anything to improve a person's prime education, right? Like their first set of skill builders, they're not taking place in spaces that are appropriate for learning, right? So that already is an immediate problem. And the fact that it's been taking longer, than 8 years is just already too long. So that's my number one concern. It's the one that I bring up every single time I go to city council. And it's just the one that I as a child growing up in Everett would have loved for someone to really take action, right? So that I could take advantage of, maybe I would have gone to one of the public schools, but I didn't, because my mom already saw issues that were happening then. And so I never went to a public school because she never trusted it. So maybe if I were to have kids here, I would send my kids to the public schools, but I wouldn't, not in this situation, right? So I would want that to be fixed. Obviously, accountability, though, that's a close, very, very close second, because you can't get any projects done unless there is any accountability or anything done with transparency. So, I mean, I would have to figure out a way to get those two done simultaneously, right?
Well, I think you're keyed in on either the most important issue or one of the most important issues in the city. I mean, that's definitely going to be. People are going to identify with that. And, I think everybody sees. Well, not everybody, but most people are seeing what you're seeing. But you have the drive and the stamina to bring a solution to this, and I'm sure you can. Part of it is forming the right delegation of your fellow councils and what have you, and bringing a strong case to the administration and to the people. Here's what we got to do, and we got to do this now. But you're absolutely right. Sitting on your hands is only going to make the problem, dramatically worse over time. You're at certainly at a fork in the road where something needs to be done. It needs to be done now. And enough of this BS on trying to take care of developers or what have you. If we get a solution, let's get to it and let's get the kids taken care of. Why don't you let's give me an email address? I'll see if I can get that up there on the banner.
Yes, that would be fantastic. So it's Salazar, my last name, SALAZ as in zebra, AR, 4, the number 4 as in Ward 4, Everett at gmail.com. So that would be the best. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Walton. I really, really appreciate this opportunity and reaching out to me, and honestly getting to connect. I'm really grateful that you do this for the city of Everett and for our campaign. And so, everybody get out there on November 4th. Please vote for Cynthia Salazar. Thank you.
Absolutely. Don't forget to let this upload. Talk to you soon.
Okay, talk to you soon.